everybody. Welcome to the next podcast for Survivor Mystery Island. This is your host of the podcast and co-producer of Survivor Mystery Island, Mason Harrell. We also have with us executive producer of Survivor Mystery Island, Cheston Smith.
What's up, losers?
Our third place player, Dustin Barnett.
You don't even go here.
Our runner-up in the game, Ronnie Rickman.
What it do, baby?
And our winner, Nate Hodson.
I am the ultimate survivor.
Indeed.
Oh my gosh. That's an old joke. Many of you will not understand. But all right, we are here tonight to sit down with the final three of the game and just talk to them about the game and how they got to where they did. We have many questions for them, and hopefully they have many answers for us. So we can jump right into it, whatever you want to say.
Yeah,
I can't talk.
It was a long game, and it went longer than we had anticipated, and I don't know how we didn't anticipate it with as many players as we had. A lot to unpack. We left immediately after it was over, so we didn't get a chance to talk about what happened, just unpack everything and think about it. So I know that you guys have stuff that you just want to get off of your chest. First, I do want to congratulate you, Nate, on a great game, well played. What do you think you would mainly contribute your W to what skill, I guess? How does one win Survivor?
Yeah, I think that's always a kind of a hard question to answer, but ultimately I think there's only one thing you can go back to, and that's the social aspect of the game. If you're just pinpointing one area directly, one element of the game directly, and I don't think I really excelled in any of the other portions of the game, and even more specifically at the end when it came down to presenting my case to the jury on every other case they did to me. I pretty much tried to downplay the importance of those factors, whether I believed it or not. I tried to downplay the importance of those factors so that I could receive the votes to win the game at the end. So I'd have to attribute to social gameplay.
So in some ways you didn't necessarily think that playing a physical game was the worst way to get there, or not finding advantages was the worst way to get there, but you downplayed that in order to elevate the way that you did play the game.
Absolutely. Specifically just addressing that, Autumn actually specifically asked the question to the jury. She basically, as it was down to me and Ronnie in the final two, Ronnie had whooped my butt in advantages. He had found way more than I did, found way more clues, and wasn't even close, honestly. And do I believe that wasn't important? No, I don't believe that at all, honestly. But as I was bringing my case to the jury, she asked, he found 2 aisles, you found 0. Should that affect how we, vote and how we for the winner? And I personally, I basically in that whole thing tried to say, I presented a whole case for why that wasn't important. So I would say exactly what you said. Basically, while do I believe that being physical, winning competitions, and winning advantages is important, and that people can win that way? 100% I do. But as I was trying to present my own case to win, I made that look like that was not the case. So
I definitely see what you're getting at, because season 3, which was your first Survivor, you seen firsthand somebody win every single individual immunity challenge in Ryan and still lose by a vote to Jacobs in his superior social game. So perhaps you seeing that firsthand, you were like, okay, so maybe the social dynamic could be the more important thing to get a leg up in the game. So what are your thoughts on being voted out, right? So what was your initial reaction to being voted out?
Honestly, I think this is one of those things I was personally proud of myself. I think it shows growth in me as a player. Any other time that I've ever been voted out of a game before, I always, as much as I didn't want to, I tend to take it a little personally. With this go around, as I got voted out, I literally just had to stand there and in my head, just doing the math, I pretty much had a good idea of who voted me out. And I basically just had to sit there and say, well done. That was a great play. And, I had an assumption there was a chance to battle back, but honestly, I didn't think that I would win even if there was one. So I really thought that was it for me. And so I really just had to stand up and give them props, and I had no regret. So
What about you, Ronnie? The outside looking in, it would appear that, you and Nate had this plan to work together from the get-go, and you see your number one ally get voted out right before the pivotal part of the game, before merge happens. Right. So what was going through your mind at that point when you see Nate go?
Immediately it was just kind of like this thought, like we were backstabbed, because we 100% going into that vote believed that we had the numbers to get who we wanted out of the game. And then there was the plot twist thrown in there where, there's a second person coming, and then next thing you know, Nate's going home. And so for us, looking into it, my immediate thought is, crap, like there goes a really tight ally that I had in this game. But at the same time, the immediate thought was, okay, like how are we going to rebound from this? What are we going to do to progress from here? And immediately, it didn't excite me by any means to see him go, but at the same time, it was kind of riveting to know that there was a curveball thrown at me and we had to respond in whatever way possible to win the game. And at the same time, the only thing that I saw at that point was more of a chance for myself, along with our alliance, to make huge social games that, did we get to the end, they were going to be moves that we were able to look back on and say, this is how we won the game, because we didn't have numbers and we still bounced back.
I think that's great survival natural instincts to want to bounce back immediately once you see your number one ally go. If your whole plan of success revolves around that one person and you take that card and your whole house of cards falls, how great was it really?
Right, exactly.
And I find it interesting that you used the word betrayal. You said when he went, you felt kind of betrayed. And you guys did a lot of backstabbing throughout the whole game. So where you were kind of betrayed one time, and for the rest of the game, it's all you did to people, I find kind of ironic.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you, Dustin? I want to get your thoughts on, because from the outside looking in, it appeared that you also were working with Nate. So what was your initial reaction when he got voted out? Were you like, oh crap, what do we do next? What's merge going to be like? Was that really not that important to you? So what were your thoughts on that?
So my thoughts were, well, crap, we just lost Nate, and my first objective was, I need to know who was this person. Because, yeah, we had the plot twist of you're actually getting 2 votes. So it was my job to go around, hey, who did you vote for? Hey, who did you vote for? To see where everyone's like trust kind of stood. And through that, I found out who had ended up voting for Nate, and later on in the game, used that as a scare tactic when Nate actually came back and joined us.
Speaking of scare tactics,
we are joined by Briar Henry.
Oh, that's not what I meant, but okay.
Third part of the
yeah.
Trinity.
So Briar's here too. But speaking of scare tactics, I felt like watching Dustin was like watching Russell Hantz in person.
I would agree.
Not like maybe to the level that Russell is, but like maybe like a baby Russell.
Yeah.
Because it was like watching Dustin trying to assemble his idea of like a dumb bitch alliance. And,
exactly. And I was disappointed that he didn't capitalize with it. At the end of the day, he stuck with his core alliance, and I felt like he was kind of blind to see that they had everyone pegged. They had everyone like,
yeah,
this is as far as you go. Like they had everyone ranked,
mm-hmm.
and Dustin was like making his own empire.
Yeah.
Only to let it crumble because that's what the guys wished.
Yeah,
I agree. Looking back on it, actually having conversation with Cheston, there was lots of different ways of playing that. And that's one of the things, like, I realized that when Nate had been voted out, but I kind of had a feeling, this can't be the end for him because of always keep a fire token on you. So I knew there would always be something to where he could possibly come back, especially with us being so close with about to be everyone on their own. So it was one of those things I found out who voted for him, but if he was gone, in a way, I knew that could kind of help me not having to worry about voting him out, but in another way, with the girls and everyone who I was already saying, hey, I'll take you here, just give me this information, I could have rerouted that and probably gone to the very end with someone, and it would have just been a no-brainer to vote me.
Yeah, I guess hard knocks to take with you for next time, right?
Mhm.
There is.
I think a lot of people are learning lessons from this season, because pretty much I felt like once Dylan was voted out, I think everyone was in a pecking order, and no one on the bottom of the pecking order ever tried to get out of it.
I would agree.
They always believed that they were higher than
Yep.
where they actually were. And I thought that was what you three in particular did so well with everyone, was that
Yep.
they always believed that they were higher on the pecking order.
Yep.
Peyton was always going to go at 4. My sister was always going to go at 5. She didn't because Melissa won the final
Right.
immunity, and that was kind of the one person that was out of order. But everyone was in order other than that. And
from the outside looking in, it was like completely like obvious to us. I think because of how exposed we are to Survivor, but for a lot of these people, it was their first or second Survivor experience. And maybe these people also aren't used to such deception and manipulation. But it was just like, this is like so obvious. Did they not see what's
Yeah.
going on right now? It's like you grab one person, I grab one person, and we just drive this home
Mhm.
and then get them out. So I found that really
it
interesting.
amazed me how much y'all had them shooting at each other.
Yeah.
How you had Cass waste an idol nullifier on Melissa when she didn't even have an idol.
Could you talk about that for us, Dustin?
Yeah, so I knew that, shout out to Cass and everything. She's a great person, but it was one of those things, she trusted me way more than she needed to. Because every time she went to the Mystery Island, she came back and she was just open with me, told me what she had gotten from it, what was there, what could be expected. She even told me that Ronnie would actually not be participating in the immunity challenge and was being sent to exile to find an idol. And so I was able to relay that information to him before the game even started. So I feel like that was a good part on his end, being prepared. Hey, I'm going here. Let's have the mindset of getting out and getting stuff out of it. But she had told me she had gotten an immunity nullifier. And at that point, my alliance, every single one of us had at least one immunity idol. And I knew that if we wanted any big plays to happen, if she wanted to take any one of us out, she could get everyone to turn on us, play that, and that idol didn't work. So I had told her that I'd talked to Melissa, and Melissa had told me, hey, big plays are about to happen. So I went and told Cass that. I was just like, hey, Melissa's about to play an idol possibly, and we're about to vote her out. So I feel like you should play this nullifier on her and get it out of here. She ended up playing it on her. She looked at me and she's just like, what happened? And so to cover my tracks on that and to make sure that Cass was still on my side, I had gone up to her and I said, hey, it actually wasn't an idol. She never showed me it. I just assumed it was. It was one of those cardboard pieces that say with the top 3. And she believed me, even though that there was no transaction between her and Madison or anything. It was just a way to cover up my tracks to make sure that I could still use her through the end.
Russell Hands.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Well, and it's arguable on whether Dustin would have gotten the votes, but he was certainly playing the game, because that's an issue that Russell Hands did have. Because just talking to some of the jury, I asked them, okay, if Ronnie makes the other decision and he takes Dustin, who do you vote for? And out of the people that I talked to, all of them did say Ronnie. So maybe, Nate, if you were on the jury in that case, who would you have voted for? I mean, obviously it comes down to final tribal council performance, but the game up to that point, who would you have voted for?
Gosh, I know when I say
Putting
these
you on the
answers,
spot.
I know when I say these answers, y'all always hate me, and I get it. But this is honestly true. At that point, I would have wanted them both to explain their games to me.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I know their games. I was there with them the whole time. We came. I mean, didn't come into it really because we didn't pregame at all. But whenever we got there, we kind of that look of we're running this together, So I've been there the whole time. We were in communication with each other the whole time. So obviously I knew their games, but I would have wanted them both to explain their games. And I would have wanted to see if both would have given me the answers of their moves, be able to explain them the best. So whichever one of the two would explain the best is the one I would have put my vote for.
So you were just looking for articulation.
I was. I firmly believe that if you're not looking for that as a jury member, then you're not really a good jury member. If you go into a jury just seeing something and saying, this is what I believe and so I'm going to vote, without listening to anybody's case, then you're kind of a foolish jury, and there's no point in us having a jury, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's go back to the start of the game. You know, everyone, you guys were on different tribes for a reason. Probably the first people that we set on tribes when we made them.
Definitely the first people we set on tribes.
And so, talking about your first starting tribe, who would you guys say on your tribe had like the best starting game that you've seen? Starting with Dustin, like who on your tribe,
Other than yourself.
yeah, do you think, okay, like this person is stepping up or is social or is whatever, who impressed you?
Honestly, like I can't really say that because as soon as the tribe was made and as they were walking, because I was the first one up there, and as they were walking up to me, I was already making game plans like, hey, this is how we're going to do it. And honestly, I knew that was either going to hurt me or it was going to help me, but the people that kept coming up, it was helping me even more, because once I got that first person, it was two against that one person, then they jumped in with us, and they jumped with us, and we all just had kind of like a mutual stance of like, hey, we're going for wins, and other than that, like, let's stay together. And they kind of just put me in charge of like the lockbox and everything, like let me go through it, let me go search by myself, but everyone else had to search with a partner. And that's how I was able to find the community idol.
But was there anyone that you were threatened by or scared of on your tribe the most?
Honestly, not necessarily. There wasn't anyone big. When it was the first tribe, Dylan was a possible thought, but
How about as the game the game progressed? Then, like, was at any point someone that you felt threatened by? No. I mean, I think that's a fair answer. I think it's also a very Russell Hantz point of view answer.
Yeah, it's honest. And from what I can tell of when I would go visit the Aries tribe, it was Dustin in charge of the lockbox.
Yeah, just
so like
leading everyone around.
Yeah, so he's not lying. Like it was 100%. Well, and we'll get to that later in a couple of rounds. Something to do with the lockbox and Dustin. But let's move on to Apollo tribe. Ronnie, how did that look?
Was there anyone there like on your starting tribe that you felt had like a good strong start? First of all,
You know, with our tribe, I was very interested to see how the game plan looked for them. When we got into our camp, one of the first things that I noticed, probably within the first 30 seconds of being there, was that there was an idol immediately above us in our pavilion. And I noted in my head, I was like, that's there. Here in a second, when no one's paying attention, I'm going to come back to it. And next thing I know, Brandon's over there announcing, guys, what did I just find? And he's up and he's digging it out, and everyone's around him reading it. And in my head, I'm just thinking, I'm not really sure what to think about this move. It's bold. I don't know how to feel about it, but maybe he knows what he's doing. And then just throughout more conversation, it was just ended up turning into me just kind of realizing that the experience level of my tribe wasn't maybe as high as I'd originally thought it would be coming in. Not to say that that was a bad thing and that they had their own plan, but that maybe they just didn't realize like certain aspects of the game you maybe shouldn't announce out loud.
So,
but
can you share with us what that was that Brand found?
Yeah, so we actually found a fake idol that, you know, I don't know, was actually not a part of the game.
It was not a part of Mystery Island originally.
However, it turned into it. Yeah, so he found a fake idol, and then he had the bold strategy to wear it around his neck everywhere he went, including the challenges, which at the time I was like, man, you need to hide that. But looking back on it, it ultimately ended up being one of the things that helped my game out tremendously, was having people see that and think it was a real idol. And then my immediate strategy was to try to get my teammates out who knew that it was a fake idol and also knew that I had been the one that kept the key to Pandora's box to ensure that those two advantages kind of stayed within me.
And that fake idol was the bane of Nate Hodson, because that fake idol
went on a journey throughout this game.
Was traded for
a granola bar. Hold on, first off, let's go back to the beginning. This fake idol is from Terror of the Troll a year ago. This idol sat there all year. No one found it.
Once it was found, we had to honor it, and we did. we didn't think it'd
I
be
mean,
that big of a deal.
anything can be a fake idol if someone says that it is.
But
so.
it was traded for a granola bar, which was then traded for a piece of Pandora's box.
Yes.
So Peyton went from having a granola bar to having a fake idol to having a piece of Pandora's box to being voted out to then bestow that to Nate. That's how you got the last piece of Pandora's box to then again tempt fate and choose the earns twice to then be screwed twice. So thank you, Brand, for doing that. Now, as the game progressed, Ronnie, was there anyone that you felt threatened by at any point?
Competition-wise, I looked at Ethan and saw someone that was really competitive. It was tough because, we lost a lot of members of our tribe really early due to, going to tribal council quite a bit at the beginning and then also just different circumstances, them having to leave the game. But Ethan was someone that I saw continuously stick around and through the brief interactions that I had with Abby and then also having interactions with Nate and Dustin who had actually been on a tribe with her and been able to talk to her a little bit more, I realized we knew she was a threat, but at the same time, here's her brother who is the other half that is probably just as knowledgeable in his own ways and is the physical beast that she is as well, with stamina wise and competition wise. So he was probably the person I saw going into the middle of the game that I definitely saw as the biggest threat.
I was very impressed by them too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was impressed by Brand too. I really wish Brand could have stayed.
Yeah, he seemed to have a good social game at the start.
Unluckily, he had other plans, but they were plans he had already had before, and that was all fine and good. We knew that he might not be staying for the entire thing, and that was fine. But he seemed to be someone that, despite announcement of the fake idol to everyone, he seemed to be someone that had a lot of potential to go far and do something new and unique and different.
What about you, Nate? Your starting tribe, any sort of first impressions? Someone got off to a good start?
Well, if any of y'all have any interaction with me, you know that I have very wordy answers, and this is no different. So, I'm going to start by saying he kind of beat me to it. Abby was playing a heck of a game.
Yeah.
A heck of a game. But also, the argument can be made that she was not playing a heck of a game because I knew that she was playing a heck of a game, which that comes down to the perception issue. Shout out to me and Mason's podcast that crashed 2 years ago, but it was cool for 2 episodes. Anyway.
And experience, it's her first.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that, just seeing what she did, with experience, she might have beat all of us, just being honest. If she would have known how to conceal certain information and not share certain pieces that she did, I really think she would have gone far, potentially could have been winner of Survivor Mystery Island. I really firmly believe that. So, she played a great game, but in hindsight, and I also firmly believe this, I don't think that she did play the best game of anybody that was on our tribe, though. I think the best game player on our tribe was May, 100%. And she had us all fooled, 100%, and she knew a lot more than she wanted to tell us that she did. And she, again, I don't know if she watches, I don't really care. It doesn't matter if she watches Survivor or not. It matters what she does in Mystery Island.
Right.
And if she hadn't, she picked it up quick, and she understood how to conceal information, how to use it to her advantage, and that's the name of the game. I mean, it really is surviving and knowing how to use information. And another argument could be made that if I wouldn't have came back after getting voted off, she could have gone really far in the game as well. I mean, I don't know what these guys would have done with knowing the information. That's hindsight at this point.
She was a natural.
She was.
I can
a comp beast.
I can confirm she's never watched Survivor.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
She just picked up on it.
The only things that she knew about Survivor was what I had told her that Survivor was, which was the basic information that everyone got at the beginning of the game when we explained this is what Survivor is and this is how it works. About a week before the game, she wanted to know, what is it if I'm potentially going to do it? Because she was never a for sure player until right when the game started. And so she got that explanation, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So everything that came after that was all her and all natural.
And in hindsight, you know, I kind of feel disadvantaged. I feel like I was put on the best tribe. It wasn't even close, you know. So I mean, but also, I mean, you know, that's just a joke. But
Oh, it would have been better if someone else was there to put on the tribe with you.
I've heard.
We had plans. So, going into the twist of the season of Mystery Island, did you guys ever figure it out? When did you figure it out? Was the twist impervious to your game? Did it put a dent in it? Did you have to maneuver around it? Starting with whoever wants to open it up.
I'll open, and the answer is yes.
To all of it?
Yes. The answer is yes. So it was really cool as a Survivor, especially someone that's watched Survivor in the recent seasons, because y'all pulled a lot of things out of the recent seasons that have come about. It was cool to see those all come into play. So it was one of those things I didn't know necessarily they were coming, but as soon as they came, I knew what they were, and I knew how I could potentially use those, if that makes any sense. Obviously, the biggest throw for me, and I think this was a twist that killed me, was, you know, there being 2 people voted out of that tribal, the second most votes at that tribal. That hurt me, and obviously it gave somebody a clear, clean shot to take me out with almost no blood in their hands. So that sucked. At the same time, because of, you know, the kind of, I guess it's kind of an edge, like, you know, I mean, you could just call it Redemption Island, but it's very similar to Edge of Extinction, kind of.
It was. I don't know if you got to get there and, like, read everything because you were so newly voted out, but we called it the Edge of Extinction, and that was the purpose of it, was for it to be the Edge of Extinction.
Sure, and being familiar with Edge of Extinction, you know, I knew that I was about to have a chance to come back in the game, and that, because we did play with Edge of Extinction, I was able to come back into the game. So it was a double-edged sword. The twist killed me, and the twist brought me back to life.
Yeah.
So my one-word answer is yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, with that, you know, it was our 5th season, and we wanted 5 different islands from Survivor to transform throughout the rounds. And in order to also sort of incorporate a Greek theme, we had our very own Charon ferry you. Just as he would take a token, you'd have to give him a fire token to then be ferried to the afterlife sort of thing, where you have to battle for your way to get back.
You have no idea how close Briar was to wearing a hood the entire time.
I wanted it to. I was like, and a big stick.
If I wasn't too lazy, I would have gotten up in my attic and gotten a hood from the Halloween stuff. But there was enough stuff to worry about trying to get ready, and that was on the lower end of the totem pole for that.
What about you, Ronnie? What did you think of the twist? Did you figure it out? How did it impact your game?
Part of me figured it out. I knew that, you know, these different islands were going to be having advantages. I've watched Survivor, not to the extent that, you know, any of you guys have. But I think I would definitely say that it impacted my game to some extent, in the sense that I was able to find an idol on the island, but at the same time, you know, never really having the proper chance to use it because there was never a need for it. So ultimately, you know, I guess it impacted my game in the sense that it brought an ally back at Merge to give us another number to where, you know, we didn't have to convince 2 people to come to our side. We only needed 1 more. And so I would say that ultimately it did help my game quite substantially.
Dustin?
Honestly, talking to someone who's only watched Survivor if it's on the TV and like someone else has watched it, I don't really think it had an effect on me. Nor was I guess, worried about it. It was like one of those things, like if I get voted out, either I'm going to have a way to get back in or I'm done. So it's just one of those kind of mindsets I just had throughout the game, like either I'm out for good or I'm going to have a second chance at this. And so I just kept that mindset, and every time we had the opportunity to send someone to Mystery Island, I just made sure it wasn't me.
Well, and obviously the first time you went, it was completely random, so there was no control over that. Mm-hmm. Do you guys feel like, obviously Ronnie and Dustin and Abby were the first 3 to go to Mystery Island, do you feel like that helped establish any kind of cross-tribal thing, or was that kind of like null and void?
I think that, you know, there was already, you know, with me and Dustin have a prior relationship with it outside of the game, that going into it, I don't think there was ever a doubt in our mind that, you know, me and him and then adding Nate into the mix would be working together. But at the same time, it gave us a chance to get to know Abby. And that was the only interaction that I ever had with her because I was never on the same tribe as her, so I never got to have like a cross-tribal like interaction that actually benefited my game in any way. But I think that it definitely like laid a foundation for Dustin to kind of get to know her a little bit more. And I'm not sure if he was ever on a tribe with her, but he can talk a little bit more about that because I know he got to know her a little bit more than I did and got more information out of her than I did.
So I did get a lot of information out of her based off of it because Ronnie kind of went off to the left, I kind of picked the middle, and she was kind of walking back to where her tribe camp was, and she was kind of talking to them before y'all had said, hey, don't do that. And so she looked over at me and I had waved her over because it's like Ronnie had said, like we already had that pre-established relationship. I was just like, okay, if I can get her to come over here, possibly tell me what was underneath her cup, then I can see what goes from there. So she had told me what was under her cup was if you close your eyes, you can hear it ring, and then something about a globe will point you that way. So I instantly knew it involved the flagpoles and that globe area in the middle. So I kind of kept her away from that, and I had went and pointed over in her area and said, hey, you hear those vents and everything. If you close your eyes and listen, they kind of have a ring to it. So I kind of convinced her, hey, there's going to be an idol over there. Kind of have a feeling that if you go over there and look, like it will be over there. And so she was dead set, okay, cool, I'm just going to chill out, not look around here until then. And then she came and asked me, hey, who's a big threat on my team? And I kind of, in a way, threw Nate under, but I brought him back up by saying, hey, Nate is a big threat, but in these beginning games, you need him on your side. If you keep him on your side, he's going to take you pretty far. But if you get him out in the beginning, that's going to put a target on your back and instantly get you out of there. And through all that, like hearing through other tribe members, she had even said, hey, cast all your votes on me. I'm going to use this immunity idol. And that would have left the vote to her, assuming that she was going to vote Nate out. And so I'm glad that whatever happened over there was taken care of to keep Nate in for the longest time.
Yeah, and adding on top of that real quick, there was a brief moment where, we tried to establish a cross-tribal alliance between the three of us, which, me and Dustin had already known about. But at the same time, we had an interesting development that we had to deal with later in the game. It wasn't a very difficult development to deal with, but, Dustin decided that it would be a good idea to point out the direct area that he believed that the idol would be in, which later in the game, whenever we put onto a tribe of 4, Nate revealed to us was the exact location that she had found her idol in. So it was kind of funny that we ended up having to deal with that immediately, even though it wasn't something that really became any amount of an issue. It still was just kind of, ironic that we had to flush it out because Dustin revealed to her where it was.
Did she find the clue? Or, okay, I was about to say, because that idol was hidden, pretty well without
Cass
a clue.
did.
Okay.
Yeah, Cass did, and then Abby went and found it.
Okay.
And that was the thing, me not knowing that it was there. That was just me trying to...
It was just a guess.
...get her away from the idol that I knew would be in the middle. Later on, which Peyton ended up grabbing.
Cass told everyone the idol clue, and someone else found her idol, but then Abby told everyone that she had the idol, which got her out. So I think we learned a lesson about speaking too much.
Yeah.
I find it so interesting, though, that how loyal, even now, you guys are to each other about, I was so happy about the twist and brought Nate back. Guys, you lost.
Yeah, we did.
You
definitely
took with you to the end, furthest to the game, the person that was puppeteering and deeming the whole order. And I hope that going forward you realize that even though you in your heart at the very end are die hard loyal to who you're loyal to first, because obviously you guys were loyal to Nate first and to everyone else second. That's why they went when they did. He beat you. So at what point do you turn that around and say, I have to now be loyal to these people who I was loyal to second, and I need to backstab Nate and get him out because I'm just going to lose, right? It's like, what's the point of going through a 15-hour game if you're just going to hand the W to someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I kind of hit on that. I was, in a way, upset about, Nate leaving, but in a way also excited because at that point, it was me and Ronnie they kind of looked up to, and it was just like all these people that I had been running around and getting information on and everything kind of was just like, okay, Nate's out of the way. Now it's just Dustin and it's just Ronnie. In a way, yeah, that did put a target on my back, but I knew that through that I could still work with the girls and possibly even if I had to, if it came down to Ronnie's thinking about getting me out using possibly Dylan, Madison, anyone.
Well, you in particular had the most options because you had your own alliance, but you also found 2 hidden immunity idols. So you could have worked with whoever you wanted to and canceled whatever these boys were going to plan. So you had all the options in your corner.
Not going to lie, yeah, that was probably the biggest downfall of my game was, yeah, loyalty is everything, like especially if you can find people who are loyal to you. But honestly, like with loyalty, eventually if you don't bite someone in the butt, it's going to bite you itself. And that's exactly what it did. Yeah, I found those idols. I ended up giving one up to one of my tribe mates to hat so that we all 4 could have one for the end game. But honestly, with keeping those and then having Cass use an idol blocker on Nate, I could have gotten Nate out and then possibly with the chance of getting another one, could have gotten Ronnie out, and it would have been me, Autumn, Cass, Peyton, and Madison Melisa, and then could have gotten Peyton out, then Melisa, and then Madison, and then it would be me, Cass, and Autumn.
Yeah, Autumn was super loyal to you.
I think going to the end with Autumn is dangerous, as me and Nate can both attest.
I agree with that, but she was most loyal to you and to Cass. And what thoughts do you have, Nate, real quickly, about Autumn? You played with her the first time in season 4, and now you played with her a second time. Any sort of, I guess, comments there, playing against her a second time? She had season 4 won. She won that game. She beats you in the end. She beats Mace in the end, but she got Pandora's boxed. So I guess any sort of takeaways from that going into it, were you like, I'm just not going to work with Autumn because of what happened last time, or what?
No, I came to the game actually kind of open to the idea of it, and actually kind of did for a little bit. I'm gonna be honest, I worked with Autumn up until the vote that I voted her out, just to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I never lied to her. And I'm pretty sure, well, I threw out dummy votes, but, like, besides that, our targets every round were the exact same except for the double vote, which she decided to vote. No, I'm not going to talk about it. Anyway, besides that, I really did work with Autumn, though. And I was willing to work with her until numbers didn't add up. And at that point, numbers didn't add up, and it was one of those things that she was kind of leading around her alliance, and it was going to be a headless alliance that we were going to be able to continue our pecking order if she went. And so it was, and nothing against, sorry, and that's not disrespectful to the other players, just that she was definitely leading that alliance, and it was very obvious to tell that. Mm-hmm. And so it was one of those things, I really did work with her until it was her time to go, and I knew at that point, it's like, we can't take her further, because I did see what happened last season. Like, we can't take her further. She's going to, her greatest strength is, and this is what I firmly believe, Autumn's greatest strength in the game is she will beat anybody in a final 2 in jury. She is the best jury manager I've ever seen in any game, hands down. Yeah. The best jury manager I've ever seen. So you can't let her get to a position where she could be in the final or you're screwed. She will beat you in jury. Yeah. And so you just can only work with her to a certain extent to where you still have the numbers to get rid of her. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
I guess I couldn't really say anything to that, not ever seeing her play, but like through that and seeing her loyalty and then like in games and stuff, Autumn was a hell of a player, and she also, like, just like me, having all these different options. I wouldn't say that she didn't have options also, because I knew she had other options besides me. In going with us guys, she could have obviously gotten the girls and instantly got rid of every single one of us guys.
That's truly what I thought was going to happen. I was like, this is what's about to happen, right? But no, you guys convinced her.
Yeah, and I pay respect to her because me and her had talked, and she said she was going to stay loyal. I was kind of iffy about it, but she said she was going to stay loyal. She stuck with it. I told her, I'll take you as close as I can, like shooting for 6, and I think she was the 7th vote out. And so I tried to stick to my part of the deal as close as I could possible.
Yeah, and I know specifically like looking at Autumn, like from my point of view, it's like she was someone that was working like, you know, with me and Dustin, like throughout the time, you know, there was communication there and trust established, and something that might have moved forward past Nate being voted out before we knew that he was going to be re-entering the game. And when we got to merge, she was someone that I wanted to get out earlier than what we actually did. I was trying to convince them that we need to get her out the vote before. Ultimately, that wasn't our decision. So, you know, it ended up working out anyways, but definitely like recognized how big of a threat that she was, and potentially could be even more of a threat moving on from there. So
Autumn's a hard ass, man. She didn't complain one time during Survivor, and she went to the hospital a couple days ago, and she played all of Survivor with a cracked hip.
wow.
So she yeah.
At respect.
But you lost. I think another person that we haven't talked about yet, I think deserves to be brought up, is Courtney. I think she played a rather well game for just being thrown into it, not knowing what's going on. She made it to top 7. What's everyone's thoughts on Courtney?
I guess I'm going to start that off because honestly, not really knowing Courtney and seeing her in the game, like especially when we became merged as one, like there was stuff that was given to Courtney that ended up, she basically, through talking with her, got her to basically forget she even had those things. So looking back on it, Courtney could have done some things, but
she had a 50-50 coin,
exactly,
to be exact.
Never got used. Yikes. And that was, I think, was good. It's one of those things, like I knew Cass had given it to her because Cass didn't want to have everything and be voted out, because I knew she gave Autumn something, and then Cass had something and she gave it to her, and I knew she had it, and it was just my goal, hey, don't play this because you're not going to need it. And so through that, like not really talking to her besides those kinds of points, yeah, kudos to her jumping right into it, but other than that, I didn't really see anything that kind of stuck out to me through her.
What I'll say to her, and a lot of times when you see that mold of someone that's not super familiar with the game, kind of an introvert, kind of thrown into a game, what you see is they latch onto one person, and then as soon as that one person goes, they're dead. They go next round.
Right.
And it was very clear and obvious that her number one person was Dylan Lemons. That was very easy to tell, very clear. Really, the only one that voted with him, honestly. Like, no shot to anything. But, and what impressed me was instead of just becoming an easy vote for us to vote out and then kind of decide what we wanted to do next, basically give us all time around to think ahead.
Yeah.
She put herself in a position where she wasn't a threat. She went and aligned herself with Autumn, and I had no interest in getting her out of the game. I didn't care. I was like, you can stay longer, And she found a way to make herself survive. I guess the name of the game, Survivor. She found a way to make herself survive, and honestly, lasted a lot longer than probably anyone thinks she should have, because she was able to make that move. So I'm going to give her props. Yeah. That's what I'll say to her.
Yeah, for sure. Like I definitely, my thoughts on that definitely align with Nate. She was someone that I was almost 100% certain was going in Nate's spot whenever we had the double vote. She had the tied votes with Nate, so when it come down to having to vote between both of them, I thought there was no question that she was going to be leaving. But she found a way to survive through that, and then ultimately through the merge found a way to just make herself like a lesser target than everybody that was around her, and ended up getting, like Nate said, a lot farther than people thought that she would have. So respect for that.
Mm-hmm. So we kind of went back to the beginning, and we kind of went all over the place after that. But I want to go back to first couple of rounds. So first round, Apollo goes to tribal. Yep. Miranda goes home. It was pretty unanimous. I don't think there's really much to say to that. It just seemed like that was the easy vote, right? Would you say?
Yeah.
Second round, though, something interesting happened that I think was a big, big deal for Nate's game in particular, that did not seem like that big of a deal at the time, and that was Nate, that y'all voted Matt out unanimously, but you did it in a way where he gave you a piece of Pandora's box that you let him have. And he is one of Jacob's best friends. Jacob is still at the game at this point. he could have willed the piece to anyone. And I was very clear with Matt. I said, you can will this to anyone in the game. And he said, I'm going to give it to Nate. And I said, you can give it to anyone in the game. Because I wanted to make sure he understood that. I repeated it twice, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to give it to Nate. And I said, okay. And I was like, that's a hell of a move, like getting a Pandora's piece that early from someone. Like you did the move where Sarah Lucina voted someone out to get the legacy advantage. Like, that was what you did to Matt, and he gave it to you, even though he had a best friend in the game still. So I thought that was pretty amazing. How did that happen, and how did that work?
Yeah, so this is what I firmly believe, and this I'm not going to reveal too much because this may be a question that's asked me later. I don't know, so I'll just be brief in this. I firmly believe a major element, and goes for Survivor, Big Brother, any kind of social elimination game, is you have to understand everyone's motivation for playing. And whenever you understand that, you understand your pecking order, and you understand where you need to vote people out. That's firmly what I believe. And me, him, and Peyton were just chilling while the girls from our tribe went to the bathroom. And he was just there to have fun, just there to play. And he was worried that the game was going to go too long, that he was not going to be able to go home and go fish and drink beer. That's literally what he said. He said, I want to go to my pond, I want to drink beer, I want to go fishing. And I was like, well, I want this guy to be able to go to his pond, drink beer, go fishing. And I legitimately liked Matt. He was really helpful to us on the tribe. I was nice to him. And I honestly wasn't necessarily expecting to vote him out there. I was expecting to try to limit a girl so that if we did go back to tribe, it would be a 3-2. We can do a little guy thing and get another girl out. That's what I was expecting. Then we see some idols flashing around. We're like, oh, okay, I'm going to pull back on this a little bit. And it just made sense to vote out Matt because I had that developed trust and relationship with him. I knew he wouldn't take it personally because of his motivation in the game. And I was really the only one on his tribe at that point that he had really any relationship with. So I knew that whenever he's going to will that, I didn't realize he could do it to the end of the game. I thought it had to be someone on his tribe. Whenever that he was going to will that I would receive that piece. And so it just made sense to vote him out there. And all the girls wanted to see a guy go. I think it was very clear that's what they wanted. So that was their motivation. Peyton was going to vote where I was going to vote. So it made sense for my game to get rid of Matt there.
It just satisfied everyone. Absolutely. And I think Derek Lavasser would agree with you on people's motivations in the game. Winner of Big Brother Season 16, that's one of his big things when he won that he talked about was find out what motivates people. Some people are not always there to win the game. Some people are there for other reasons, and you can use those to your advantage if you are trying to win the game. Moving on from that, we then go to Tribe Swap. So something interesting happens at Tribe Swap. A Pandora's box piece gets left at Aries. Right, Dustin? Mm-hmm. I watched you guys put that Pandora's box piece in the lockbox, and it got left there. To everyone's knowledge on your tribe, it was there always. No one was going to go get it because you guys weren't supposed to cross tribal lines, but someone did cross tribal lines and go get it later. That's not the point. I wasn't going to name names, but you can say it.
You liar. Dylan's a liar.
That's up to you. But I thought that was interesting that they all trusted you so much because I remember you were standing above the box when I walked up and I said, come on, guys, it's time to go to your next immunity challenge. And you said, should I just leave it in the box? And everyone agreed. They were all like, yeah, let's do it. And so it's amazing for us as like producers to see this thing that we put in there as someone should be greedy with this. Someone should take this and put it in their pocket and no one should know about it. And time again, I think it happened last season too, on the opposite tribe that I was on, the one that Nate was on, they opened the box together in front of everyone.
It's turned into
a group thing of like, what's in this box? And I like never would have thought that's what it turned into, but I was also like astonished to see that they just were all okay with that. Just let's put it back in the box.
So it wasn't ever my plan to open it with everyone around. Like I said, I kind of had everyone like leave and go look for the clue because where our tribe was, like the numbers of where the clues were for the combo weren't actually set. Like 3 took us to nowhere when actually 2 was 3, 2 was 2, and 1 was 1. And it was just like that kind of threw us off for the longest time. We went through multiple games of like we can't find clue number 3. And that's where you had told us, hey, like, actually, where 2 is pointing you here, like, there's 2 2s and 1. Like, that was supposed to be 3, but y'all got into a rush and everything. And at that point, I already had 2 clues, and I guess one of them, and I was going through them, and my plan was, hey, I'm going to open this as they go look for number 3. And that's when y'all came over and we're like, hey, we're about to go, because I already had the code for it. I was going to open it on my own, and that was the thing. Autumn already knew I had it down, and so I locked it back, I closed it, and I was just like, okay, well, what do I do? Because this could be an idol, this could be blah, 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 blah. I was just like, okay, best case scenario, I'm going to open this and make sure everyone knows where it's at, what's inside of it, so that, one, I can plan my game against that. And so I just made sure that whenever we got back, everyone was there. I opened the box, I showed everyone, and I held on to that until we went to the game. And I was just like, hey, I'm putting this in the box. So therefore it didn't fall out of my pocket, fall out of someone else's pocket, someone tried to take it from someone, pass it to another tribe. Because if it was at the box, I knew it was going to stay in that box.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, so there's almost like a somewhat of a mentality there of like buddy system, like Boston Rob type of thing of like, okay, well, you know, if everyone's right here, if everyone sees this thing, then at least I know they're not talking about it, they're not doing something with it. So that makes sense in some ways. And certainly you guys were kind of put in a dilemma with like the chalk being not accurate, but you know, once we corrected that, you guys got it easily. So moving on from that, New Apollo tribe, y'all seem to have, were all 3 of y'all on New Apollo?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's, y'all seem to have a very, very good majority on New Apollo. To me, whenever I walked over there to interview you guys, it seemed like it was you 3, Autumn, and my sister.
And
We had
Peyton.
And that was
And
Peyton, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was 6 out of the 8 on that tribe.
Yeah.
I can tell you from once those tribes were made, the other tribe looked over and said, they are stacked.
Yeah.
And I think that was like their mentality of that first game is, wow, they're stacked. So honestly, like looking over as we walked up to the end to turn in our thing to finish that immunity game, we walked and they were still trying to jump back and forth, and you could tell some of them had already given up just at the fact of who was on our tribe.
Yeah, they could not figure out the feet thing. Dylan had it figured out, and the rest of them just did not get it. They did not understand. He was like, okay, I'm going to hop, you guys walk. And then they would all be hopping. And he was like, no, you guys don't have to hop yet. And it was kind of comical, like just trying to watch him assemble this, him clearly understanding what was supposed to happen and no one doing what needed to happen.
Dylan's just a take charge kind of guy. Did he come off as abrasive throughout the game?
Honestly, in the beginning, not at first, and I think that was because by the time he had gotten put onto like the tribe that I was originally set on, like I already had Autumn up there with me. I had this guy named Colton up there with me, and he already saw that it was us 3 talking, and so he just kind of had to go in with that because it would have been him and Jacob versus me and my 3, and then when Madison came, my 4, and so he kind of just stayed underneath me in a way. I think he was trying to use me as a meat shield, which ended up biting him in the butt.
Any sort of game difference that you've seen, Nate, out of Dylan this time around?
Again, for me, it was just so weird because I felt like he played the early game the way he always should have been playing the early game.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I felt like his early game was actually really, really good.
That's what I thought too.
But there was literally a flip of a switch. I saw Season 3 Dylan,
Yeah.
and no one there was going to be comfortable with Season 3 Dylan staying in the game very long. As you saw, we voted him out the very next vote. So it was just weird. Part of me thinks he might have been tired and it was just, we're going to either just power to the end or go home, and that was his mindset. I don't really know. It was a weird switch for me. I don't really understand it. Maybe he just started to feel like he was losing control and he had to do something drastic, which if he did, props.
What does Season 3 Dylan do?
If only the fake idol was real.
Yeah, what does he do? Like, can you describe to me like the atmosphere he brings to the game that makes it so uncomfortable? It's like he's got to be next.
So it's exactly the same gameplay that Dustin was playing with, except for instead of more like Guido coming knocking on your door and busting your kneecaps, he's just in his trench coat in the shadows smoking a cigarette as his boys go and jump you real quick. If that makes any sense.
I'm
Like,
doing myself. Not at all.
They both sound horrifying.
Like it's fear, but it's a quiet fear. It's a fear.
Did you just like speak from experience with those analogies?
No comment.
So does that make Dustin a loud fear?
I would say so, yes. Which I think it depends on personalities. And some personalities of the players that play, the quiet one is going to be the better gameplay. Amongst this, there was so much paranoia, and with him trying to create even more, it just made everybody want to stop and vote him out. Honestly, like a lot of times paranoia can work depending on the experience, I would say, of game players. With this one, I think that was a negative.
I think one of the biggest things that you have to do when you're on the bottom is create chaos. When you're on the bottom and you're on the bottom and you're going next, you have to create chaos. I don't know that Dylan was at that point yet where it was necessary.
Well, I will say that he definitely believed that he was to that point.
Mm-hmm.
I was someone that he had approached, and that we kind of created a trust between each other at the beginning of the marriage. And he had expressed to me very verbally, he was like right now, I have to do something because I know that there's one alliance, there's another alliance, and then there's me, and I have to do something about that. So that was something that he did express very verbally, that he knew that he had to do something, which was create chaos, and ultimately it ended up just making two different sides unite, even though they had no reason to. So
true. There's sometimes people will do that and they'll unintentionally put the target on their back, and sometimes it can work the other way around. Sometimes you can do the Dr. Will strategy of make the target so big it disappears, but like I said, even though Dylan believed he was at that point, from an outside perspective, he wasn't yet. He might have been in a vote or two, but right at that moment, it wasn't the correct time to start putting that paranoia out there. And I think a good way to put that paranoia out there would have been to start throwing it at you and you and you. All three of y'all just start aligning the girls to march on and take out the four of you three and Peyton, because it could have very, very easily happened after merge. It could have been 6-4. Obviously, you guys had some idols, so it might not have happened exactly right then, but they could have burned some idols, certainly, and then been able to do it at 9 or do it at 8, because they would have had multiple tribals to do it if that was really their goal. But no one had that as the central idea of let's target the 4 that are running things.
So obviously this wouldn't happen. This final 3 would not have happened without the other, I'm going to call them generals. I feel like Nate was the captain of the sort of alliance, or he had the most hand in the direction that things were going to be steered. And he had his generals, which I believe was you guys, and Maddie and Peyton, and then you guys brought in the little soldiers, whoever you felt close to, into the alliance to turn it the way that it went. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the other generals real quick, because this would not have happened without the other loyal, die-hard,
Did you guys have an alliance name? Peyton kept referring to you guys as the boys. We would ask him, who you're voting and why, and he would be like, I'm voting this person because the boys told me to.
Same with Maddie. She was all
the
about
boys.
It. Yeah.
Well, listen, it may have not been coined, but you know what? I say right now, coin it. The boys.
I guess when you're when you're good enough, people give you a name for you. You don't even have to come up with your own. So I'll take the boys.
Shaq didn't call himself Big Diesel. Somebody else did.
I think it's just one of those things. Coming into the game, we knew, as Ronnie had said, me, Ronnie, and Nate all have an outside the game relationship, so we knew that was going to be a thing. So say if you call Nate the captain and then me and Ronnie the generals, I think with Peyton and everything, we brought Peyton in under that, but Maddie I would never say was part of our head up there with us. We had her, but we would kind of keep her out of the loop.
I think that answer might be different between the three of you, because I think for Nate Maddie was much, much more of an integral part of Nate's game than what she would have been for yours.
That's the thing. I never had Maddie on my tribe, so I never had to have that game with her. But like on big plays that we kind of ran, I think we didn't really keep her in the loop on that.
Well, from what I've observed, you brought in Autumn on a lot of votes, which was important, and Peyton brought in different people. Ronnie brought in different people, but she in particularly brought in May on a few votes.
Oh, my bad. I was thinking of May. That's my fault then. I was thinking of May. Bring that back. I was thinking of May. That's why. Okay.
Yeah,
if we
that
were
makes
talking
more
about
sense.
May,
That makes a lot more sense.
We kept May out of a lot. Okay, that does make. I'm a little stupid. So.
Speaking to that, was that a feeling of threatening emotions coming from her? Because what seemed to happen with May was that pre-merge, no one was worried about her at all. She just went under the radar, and then boom, merge happens. She wins the ruler comp, and it was like, oh my god, she's amazing. She's gonna win the game. That was the perception from the outside.
It was earlier.
Was it a little earlier?
I mean, I think the clear sign of holy crap, which I mean, obviously I'm biased because I was detriment to it. She voted me out.
Yeah.
Like, she was the reason. I would say her and Autumn. The other two votes were expected against me.
Mm-hmm.
Her and Autumn were the ones that turned and made me go home. Made me go to Mr. Allen and come back. And initially, I realized there was at least some woman underground working at that point that she at least initially had some leverage on. Luckily, I'm going to give some props to, I would say mostly these two. I didn't have two. I had a little hand in this, but mostly it was these two. They kind of created a lot of doubt amongst the feminine variety and made them start shooting shots at each other.
Mm-hmm. I felt like Dustin did more of that out of the three.
He did.
Mm-hmm.
He did
just
the most.
from the outside.
For sure.
And I think that might have been why they didn't like him at the end of the game. I mean, we got to remember the four of the 6 jury members. Well, 4 of the other 5, other than Dustin, were those girls. Mm-hmm. And so I think while they were a lot of good game moves, I think a lot of people were privy to not wanting Dustin to be there in the end because of that.
I think based off the 2 people you talked to, I knew I would not have those votes. Maddie and Melissa, I knew I wouldn't have those. But I think honestly during, if it did come down to me and Ronnie and me going over how many people I talked to, the different things I did, I honestly think Autumn and Cass would have been on my side, and then the deciding vote would have been under Nate of who we thought better jury would have been. Yeah,
well, maybe we can touch on that right at the end too. I think kind of our last couple of topics is I accidentally undermined Cheston's question earlier whenever I asked about the alliance name. But going back to, let's talk about Maddie first and then Peyton second. I think Nate could probably speak the most about Maddie probably out of the 3 of you, but feel free to talk openly about that.
So that was, for any of you that are Bible readers or believers in Christ, that have read anything of the story of Abraham and Isaac. Essentially God tells Abraham to sacrifice his only born son Isaac. They go to the altar. Boy Isaac's strapped and about to get clapped. And, sorry, I should have said that.
Oh my god.
This is Living Translation 2020.
About to be clapped.
Anyway,
do not clap thy son, Abraham.
Anyway, let's disregard that, right? So Abraham's about to have to sacrifice his only son to be obedient to God. And then God provides a provision of I can't remember the livestock. Is it a bull? Bull, correct?
It was a ram.
A ram. Okay, yeah, a ram stuck in a bush that he can then sacrifice instead of his only son Isaac. And so it comes to a point that I'm trying to create some distance from Ronnie and Dustin and Peyton, just so people don't know it's that obvious, hopefully. And I'm just walking along the trail of Rocket Park, and I just see Maddie just walking by herself. There's a cluster of girls over here talking, shooting to each other, and I just see Maddie just walking there by herself. I'm like, here's my ram. So I go up to her, and I basically start asking her, and she says, yeah, people are just using me for votes. Nobody actually wants to work with me. I'm just being used for votes. And I'm like, Maddie, welcome to the boys. Come work with us. I didn't actually say that.
Let
Obviously,
me use you for votes.
No,
Hey, you know that thing everyone else has been doing to you? Why don't I do it to you,
But
but make
we'll
you
do
feel
it.
good about it?
Yeah. But in all fairness, I legitimately did it. She was highest priority for me, disregarding, the 4 we had. Like, I legitimately wanted to take her as far as possible, and I legitimately wanted to work with her. She was nothing but honest with me. I was nothing but honest with her. I never lied to her once, and it was another number, and that allowed us to keep our pecking order in order, because really she was kind of a floater. I didn't personally know where she was going to fall in, and so whenever I had that conversation with her, and then whenever she voted out Dylan, I was like, here's our key piece, here's our key vote, time for us to run through the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that was big. And then obviously Peyton, he was one of the boys. It's just when there's 4 left, one has to go. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, that was kind of another one of the motivation tactics for me. I understood he had never played before, and I understood he was satisfied with getting 4th.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously
he
you
was
want to
then.
win.
He was then. I will say, talking to him now, in hindsight, he's not.
Exactly.
He learned from it, because he told me yesterday. We played disc golf yesterday for a few hours, and he kept bringing it up to me. I wasn't even talking about Survivor. He kept saying, man, I should have done something at Final 7. He said, I should have turned people against Nate at Final 7.
That is the story of Survivor
Yeah.
for many, many people. You don't know it's too late until you look back and it's too late.
And that actually excites me, because that means that he's going to know what to do, and he's going to be very fun to watch in the future. So that's actually what I want to hear. But at the same token, I knew what his motivation was at that time. He was willing to be where he was, and that's what made him so useful. And I honestly believe the same thing about Maddie. Maybe I'm wrong, but I honestly believe she just wanted to have someone to run with in the game. She didn't have that. You know what I'm saying? She was a voting block. It was, I don't really want to work with you, but come give me your vote this round, and I'm not going to vote with you next round. I want to vote with her consistently to 5 and then vote her out. So, I mean, it was a little better.
Yeah.
And so, that's what I can say to that. So.
Yeah, anybody else have anything to add about Maddie or Peyton?
Yeah, I mean, I never had a chance to work with her. I mean, all I knew was that when it got down to crunch time, whenever we needed a vote, she showed up, and so it was clutch.
Thanks.
Honestly, from the lines, yeah, I was happy with it. Yeah.
Man, she was so worried going into the game too. She's someone that can stress herself out over nothing sometimes, and she got in there, and then that was all immediately gone. She was not worried about the game at all. She was ready to play. She's a competitor, and I mean, as soon as the game started, that competitive spirit was out and on display. I don't think she went to council until we forced her to, and I think she might have been the only person in the game that happened to. I think she did not go to council until that final 12 where Nate got voted out.
I think she played next one. Yeah.
So, I mean, she was definitely under the radar, and she told me that now that she's done it, that she is ready for next time. So we'll see how that works out. But anyways, what about Peyton for you, Ronnie?
Yeah, he was part of the grand scheme, right?
Yeah,
So.
I mean, Peyton for me, I didn't get a chance to be on a starting tribe with him. But then, once all of us got united at the Apollo tribe, it was the boys together, and we got a chance to kind of get to work together and talk to each other more about game. And then when it got to merge, he was just someone that we all knew would just go with us and give us that extra man in our alliance, and he was exactly that. He was the extra person that gave us the power that we needed. Not to say that he was ever at the bottom of the total pole within our alliance, but we knew, like Nate said repeatedly, and we've all brought up, is there was a pecking order, and we knew where he was on that. But we were super glad to have him within the alliance to have that extra piece that we needed. So.
Mm-hmm. And I think if he wins Final Four immunity,
it's a
things are very different.
It was that. Whenever we got to the Final Four, and we had immunity, it didn't matter. If we look back on it, we didn't even leave the benches at that particular time. We were given the chance to go talk about our votes because we didn't need to. But I think that if Peyton wins that immunity, then we're all going and having conversations, and there's a lot of strategizing.
I think some fires are being made.
Yeah.
At that tribal, if I'm being really, really honest, if Peyton wins the immunity.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe not. Maybe y'all would have all just said, hey, Nate's going to win, let's vote him out. And ganged up on him like you did on Peyton. But maybe not.
Thoughts, Dustin, on Maddie and Peyton?
I think, like I was saying, Peyton's self-explanatory. Like again, hell of a game. But it was kind of self-explanatory. He was part of what we call, I guess now, the boys, and so he played a hell of a game of like on his side of just going and talking with people and just the physical aspect of it. And then Maddie, like, she was on my starting tribe. She was scared. She didn't want to. At first, she didn't want to be there, and so she was like kind of telling everyone, "Oh, we'll be the first vote. We'll be the first vote." And I was just like, I'm going to keep that mentality, keep her in for a couple games. And so I got everyone around. I said, hey, if we lose one of these, Jacob's our first vote. And everyone agreed. And then I had everyone else, hey, if we lose a second one, then she will be our second vote. Us not ever losing one, never got to vote out Jacob through my tribe, never got to vote out Maddie through my tribe until the very end. So we didn't really, as my first tribe, never got to vote anyone out. So that kind of played an aspect on everything. But other than that, I think she did a really good job. Yeah, I would say she got used a lot just for that vote. But when it came down to it, she dug her heels into the ground and got to work.
So I just have 2 questions left, unless you have anything, Mason.
The last thing I just wanted to talk about was final tribal. So whatever you've got that leads up to that, or I figured that would be the last thing we could talk about.
We can start there. So my second to last question is, Nate, final thoughts on Pandora's Box? Comments as we close the chapter.
Real quick calculation. The chances that it would happen 2 years in a row were 1 in 9, 11%. So you fell under the extreme, not too extreme, but you fell under the very low minority chance that would happen. Yeah. Dustin's trying to calculate. Mm-hmm. He had a 1/3 chance to lose the first year times a 1/3 chance to lose the second year. So the chances that it would happen 2 years in a row is 1/9. So you got unlucky, but it didn't matter. You got to the end. You won unanimously, the first unanimous winner in Survivor Durant history. Yeah. So congrats on that. That also brings up your total resume to, you have played 4 games. You have made it to the final 3 out of those 4 games. You have won 2 out of the 4, and both of them you won unanimously. So congrats on that. You probably have the best resume in Durant out of any Big Brother or Survivor player that's here. But back to the question. I already forgot what it was. Pandora's Box pieces, yeah. So having fallen under that, what was your thoughts?
Gosh. So I want to first off say that I was humbled at the fact that 2 years in a row, 2 pieces fell into my pocket at the very end. Because that shows that there were people that, even with not going as far as I did, still trusted me and wanted me to have those pieces and willed those to me. Because I don't believe I've technically found any of those 4 pieces, if I remember correctly. Maybe I might have found 1 in the last season. But I definitely didn't find another one this season. They were both willed to me. And that's super humbling and very, it means a lot to me personally, outside of game, just as a human, that means a lot. Man, the fact that would happen twice in a row, it honestly, I think it could have, I don't know, I honestly don't know how that would happen. I think it could have been a blessing in disguise that I didn't get it, because then I didn't have to make a hard decision that forced Ronnie to, and Ronnie even said afterwards he's really hoping I would have pulled it so he didn't have to make the decision himself. So it might have been a blessing in disguise that I didn't pull it. It's also just kind of, it is what it is, and you just kind of have to be at peace with it. It didn't cost me the game. If anything, maybe with my answer at jury to that question, maybe that swung me some votes and helped me win the game.
Yeah,
I don't, exactly, I don't, maybe it did. So, if anything, it still might have been to my advantage to have those 2 pieces and not pull Pandora's Box. And it's one of those things you just have to live at peace with, I guess.
Like, as you were going for, like, the first pick, was that, like, going through your mind? Like,
every
it
second,
reared its ugly head.
Every second. It was on loop. It was a nasty VCR movie that I put in the tape with that nasty, grainy film, and was just playing in my head again. This is going to happen again. I know it is.
Twice.
Stop it. I know it's going to happen again, and I don't want it to, and I can't stop it.
Put it into existence.
Yeah.
final three tribal council, Mason?
Yeah, so moving
Final two.
from Pandora's box, obviously you made Ronnie made this, my bad, rephrase. Ronnie won that, he made the decision. So my question to you is, we talked a little bit about this on the phone yesterday, very briefly.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on while making that decision? What was the thought process? And there's no, again, I don't want you to feel like, obviously Nate won, there's no wrong answer to that.
Right.
It's just your thought process. It's just a judgment call.
Yeah. So my thought process, going into it was first and foremost, the thought of taking out, Nate was with that ability, to me, threw up a red flag in one sense because, me and Nate did have a final two deal. And loyalty is something that I see as a really big part of this game. And it's something that, will win you votes, it'll lose you votes, whatever that cost is, it's something that immediately stuck out in my mind. So then I had to start weighing the different advantages and disadvantages of both of them. And when I looked at, the gameplay of both of them, I saw pros and cons. One, I saw Dustin, who had won a couple of different individual immunities. He had the same resume that I did whenever it came to advantages within the game. And when I looked at him, he was somebody who, all of my connections that I had made within the game were not in the jury. They were no factor at the end. So when I looked at Dustin, it was somebody that, regardless of how they felt about him, about the decisions that he made, that it ended up getting them out of the game, with the Russell Hands approach of, manipulating them essentially, and, disregarding the ill will of that, he had played the best strategic game when you look at who was on the jury and what they would think, regardless of where their votes would have went for that. So that was one thing that immediately scared me. And then whenever I looked at Nate's resume, I saw that, he didn't have any idols that he had found himself. And then whenever I looked at challenges, I could be wrong. I don't remember him winning an individual. Did you win one?
He did.
Okay, so he won one individual immunity challenge. So it was somebody who, when I looked at, side by side my game with, I felt like was more comparable to win. And one thing that I didn't see within his game, and I think this ultimately goes back to what Nate had said about Abby, and that was that she was playing such a great game, but then again, she probably wasn't because he knew that she was playing a great game. And this is where I think, could contribute to Nate's win, is him saying that, by me not seeing his social strategy throughout the game, because I had seen none. Every vote that I had seen come into play for us had, and to my knowledge, not knowing any conversation that happened, had come from Dustin. So when I looked at our social game, it was nothing that I knew that Nate could beat me in. It was something that I genuinely thought taking Nate to the end was going to benefit me, because I had seen, other than the few social moves that we had made as a group, nothing that really just stood out to me that was going to win him the game. And I think that ultimately had a factor in it, is like he said, hiding the fact that he was having such a great game ultimately ended up getting him to the final two and putting him in the position to win. So.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard the phrase, good liars don't let you know that they are good liars?
Yeah, exactly.
So I feel like that was kind of maybe a little bit of what happened right there, was Nate's social game was at least in the minds of the jury. We got to keep that in context too. It's all in the minds of the jury.
Yeah.
Is at least in the minds of the jury, his social game was so good that it seemed unseen before that.
And one thing, and it was one of those things where I genuinely thought that he didn't have that social game until you guys talked about, you don't know that you made the wrong decision until after you've made it. Well, it wasn't when the votes were read that I knew I made the wrong decision. It was right when we started out the questioning, and Autumn just goes, "Nate, you played a hell of a social game." And I'm over here and I'm like, where is this social game? I genuinely just did not know where this had come from. And especially from Autumn, because to my knowledge, every communication that we had ever had with Autumn came through Dustin. Mm-hmm. And so I'm over here like, what did I just do type of thing. And so from then on, it was just kind of one of those things where I was like, all right, I probably made the wrong decision here. So.
Yeah, well, and there's nothing wrong with that. You still played a great game regardless. You got there. You were my personal pick to win the game. For much of the reasons being, like we talked about in the podcast, that I had a very, very sneaking suspicion that you would be there, and you have to be there to win the game in the first place. So good on you for getting there, because I don't feel like you were ever anyone's target the entire game.
Yeah, and that was one thing that I thought would genuinely, when I looked back on it, thought would get me at least one vote was just that throughout the entire game, I had my name written down, as a vote twice. And the only reason for that was because, one, we had to vote out 2 people, and my name showed up once. And then another one, each person got 3 votes and couldn't vote for the same person. So my name showed up once there. So I was like, this will at least show that I had some sort of social game to be able to stay connected with enough people that nobody at any point wanted me out. But ultimately, I guess that wasn't the jury's decision. So
that's all good. Dustin, you as a voter for that final tribal council, what were you looking for in their answers?
Honestly, I'm gonna actually go back to before that happened, when it was us 3 before Ronnie made that decision. I honestly had the strongest feeling I would be the one voted out due to the social game and everything, and how vocal my social game was, and who I was talking with, who was in that jury. I was just like, if I get put in this, I feel confident. But I knew as soon as Ronnie started talking and saying through all this decision, it was hard and everything, I was like, that's it. That's going to be me. He's taking Nate. But like you said, going into being in the jury, I knew Nate was going to win from the very beginning, because as soon as they stepped off, everyone was ready to go home. Everyone was just done with it, and everyone was just like, just bring him back. We're just going to vote for Nate. Be done with it. And so it was kind of one of those things yeah, it's in the hands of the jury, but if the jury's already dead set on something and they just want to go home, that's what's going to happen. And that's kind of what it was. And so with us talking, I kind of had to show both sides of, hey, this is because I was in the middle of it. I saw everything that Ronnie did, and I saw everything Nate did. So I brought up all of Nate's social parts on it, and I brought up all of Ronnie's social parts on it, and looked at both of them with everyone saying, hey, this is what Ronnie did. I had mentioned that Ronnie didn't get any votes toward him. He was basically a ghost, and I made that clear to them. And I was like, then I go back on the other spot. Then Nate was a target, got voted out, ended up coming back. So I think that's kind of what outdid the whole fact of Ronnie not getting enough votes, is the fact that him getting votes and then being voted out and then coming back kind of boosted up his thing. And then another big thing was just the fact of Nate going 2 years and hitting Pandora's box and failing miserably twice. Kind of was in his favor on that as a petty card. Hey, we kind of feel bad. It sucks. This happened twice. And so I knew that was kind of talked about through the girls and everything. But other than that, kudos to Ronnie and congrats to Nate. Both of them, I say, played a hell of a game, and it was a very hard decision. It came down to the point on my vote being wise of who should I vote for. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you went into it with an open mind, because that's certainly something that we encourage juries to do. I brought this up to this jury. Nate will know what I'm talking about, where we have seen juries full on want to vote for someone, and then they go into the questioning and they change their mind. That happened in Big Brother 2. Our jury there there were 9 jurors, and 8 of them were dead set on who they were voting for, and then the vote turned out to be 6-3 in the other person's favor. So, we wanted people to go in with an open mind, even though it's late. That is the one part of the game that we never want to rush through. And so I'm glad that you brought that to the table, and that everyone seemed to be open-minded about it.
I was very proud of you too, Mason, in that sense. I thought that you demonstrated that very well at the very end, this being your first Survivor that you hosted. I know that we're focusing on the 3 boys that made it to the end, but I was very proud of you in that regard.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Certainly, even though it's my first Survivor, definitely had some experience in the Big Brother realm, and with Nate's help in one of those. And so it was a lot of just trying to transition that over to a Survivor element, and just trying to be helpful but not overbearing. So I just, that was my mindset with it. I wanted people to have fun, and I think pretty much everyone that was there walked away with, hey, I may not have done well. I may have not. I mean, obviously Nate doesn't have this mindset, but everyone else might have said, hey, it might not have been the outcome I wanted, but I had fun and I want to do it again. And that was, I think, for me and you, our end goal with it was yes, we want people to have fun with this.
So closing questions for Mystery Island, starting with Dustin. One word to describe your overall gameplay.
Vocal.
Would you do it again?
Yes.
Would you change anything?
Yes.
What?
Having that many girls who were loyal to me in the biggest part, and knowing who had idols and knowing who had things to get rid of those idols, I could have used that for my gameplay and got rid of people like Nate, got rid of people like Ronnie and Peyton and everything. And
So you would just be more open-minded as far as like what your options are. I
Yes.
think that's extremely wise.
Other than that, I would have kept everything the same.
Ronnie, one word to describe your game.
So honestly, when I look at it, just simple. Like I played a very simple, straightforward game of going through unnoticed, winning immunity, and just being able to have idols for my own safety and just knowing that I had that. So probably just simple.
Would you play again?
Oh, for sure. I definitely would.
Would you change anything?
I would change one thing, and don't take any offense when I say this, but 100% I probably would have used an idol at the very beginning of Merge to try and get rid of one of our alliance members, regardless of who that was, to be able to shake things up so that although me and Nate had the final two, I wouldn't have to be the one to vote him out, and maybe that would have run its course a little bit.
So paraphrasing, you would not let your loyalty to your friends determine your loyalty in the game.
Yeah, for sure.
Another-
Draw a line between friendship and the
Yeah,
game.
another excellent lesson to be learned. And Nate, one word to describe your overall gameplay of Mystery Island.
It's tough.
I feel like I have a good one for you.
Can I defer to let
Sure.
Jesus give a word?
Depends on what the word is.
Redemption.
Damn right.
Would you play again?
I would. I don't think I'm going to be able to, because that's kind of the curse of Survivor at this point. You win, you don't play again. But yeah, I would play again. Sure.
And would you change anything?
Oh man. I don't think I would want to. I think I would have to at this point, if that makes any sense.
I think that's fair.
I,
Yeah.
I don't think I could play the same way again and make it work, assuming that we have a pretty good return rate of players. You know, as long as it's not a whole bunch of newbies, I don't think. You know, and I don't think if especially those playing with these guys, that they would let it play out exactly the same way again, especially from their answers so far. So,
I think it's true. I think that maybe we see a much more cutthroat Nate Hodson that maybe puts on a front of keeping his close friends as allies close, but then when they get too privy to his intentions, has to backstab him. I think we will close out Mystery Island talk with the final words from Briar. You noticed a lot of things, and any sort of comments that you have for Mystery Island, your time as Charon, seeing your prodigy Nate Hodson come back into the game and win. We've never had that before. Someone be voted out, come back in, and then win the whole thing. Any sort of opinions or thoughts that you had on the gameplay?
Let me think. Just me as a player. I'm a snake when I played the game. You should have backstabbed it.
I think that's the new theme of the season. You should have backstabbed Nate. That's the slogan. Now we're going to pay out our winners.
Yeah.
So for first place, Nate Hodson, $100 to you right there, buddy.
Sir.
Congratulations. Well earned. Second and third place was paid for by Mason's parents, probably the greatest help of all time.
Absolutely.
Like they stuck it out.
Yeah,
Hey,
hey, if Mike and Michelle are listening, just want to say from all of us, thank you.
Yeah.
Y'all made the game, helped the game go smooth, and y'all stuck it out way longer than y'all should have. We are very appreciative.
Yeah.
Yes.
You'll never know what it means to me personally too, and you guys are welcome anytime.
They probably won't listen, but if they do, then here it
can
is.
tell them for
You
us.
can fast forward to that part.
But yeah,
So-
he said we could use these taco casa bucks
Yeah.
for whatever. We thought about using them to tempt you if we did an endurance challenge, but
There was 10, now there's 8.
So Cheston got hungry before, and then went and got some tacos.
No, stuff got lost between the transition.
That's
So
fair.
second place, 5 taco bucks to you, sir.
Yeah.
And third place, 3 taco
There you go.
bucks.
Get you some tacos.
Congratulations very much.
Nate could buy like 50 tacos.
And final thoughts, words, things for the podcast. Without saying the title, we have a working title for season 6. I'm going to turn it over to the host of season 6 to talk a little bit about season 6, Dustin Barnett.
And y'all weren't ready for that. This was my first game of Survivor, and I think playing gave me a lot of ideas on like the inside of how games run, how games go, and then just talking with Cheston and Mason. I feel like this next game it's going to show a lot of people's true insights of how a game should be played, and I'm honestly really excited to be hosting this one. I'm ready to see who's actually in what alliance, and I think it's going to be one hell of a season.
I do too. I'm really excited for it as well. There will be a co-host with Dustin, and that's all that we'll say on that. And that's all we're going to say. So we will see you for season 6 of Survivor coming next year.
Nate's
Yes,
raising
Nate?
his hand.
There's one last thing that after listening to the pregame podcast, I said I was going to do whenever I received my prize, and that's for giving $20 to the man who believed in me, Mr. Carry On Briar Henry.
Congrats on winning the draft, Briar.
Yes.
He had much more likely of a chance to do so, but we're not going to get into that.
Again, though, shout out to everyone who did play. Everyone had their own game of how they played. Some of you, it worked out for you. But I personally want to shout out to Maylisa, Madison, Autumn, Cass, and Abby. Out of everyone that did make it, y'all stuck out to us. I know y'all's names
A lot
came
of
out
strong
a lot.
women.
Yeah,
Yeah,
y'all's
absolutely.
names came out a lot, and so
Too
just
bad you weren't part of the boys.
kudos to y'all. Y'all did amazing, really hard working people, and so thank y'all.
All right. Well, with all of that being said, we are going to finish this podcast up. For the future, if any of you that are listening want to do a podcast with us, just let us know and we'll see if we can make it happen. This has been really fun. So this has been the producers, me, Cheston, and Briar, and our final 3, Dustin, Ronnie, and Nate. We are signing off, and we will see you guys next time.
Scooby-Doo!